Hello everybody, Alexander the Lame here with a video essay on Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Now, this video essay is for an assignment, but I made sure to put as much effort I could, and I want to continue making video essays, so I put a little more effort, and I'm obviously posting it to YouTube for you guys to listen to. Now, the Twelfth Night is a Shakespeare play. I didn't realize how high my camera was. I'm like, oh, I do so much down here, and it's like, you can't see that. This is a Shakespeare play. I have a copy in my textbook, but I did get my own copy to match the rest of my Shakespeare plays. Shakespeare was an English playwright, poet, actor in the Renaissance era. The details about his personal life are kind of limited due to the time period, and I don't know. He was, people though believe he was born and died on the same day, which is April 23rd, 52 years apart, so he lived till he was 52. He was born in Stanford upon Avon, England, and then scholars kind of figured he probably he did attend King's New School in Stanford. He attended until he was 14 or 15 and did not continue to university. Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway, not the Anne Hathaway we all know, in 1852 when he was 18. And Hathaway was 26 and pregnant. The couple ended up having 3 kids, a daughter named Susanna, and twins, a son named Hamnet, and a daughter named Judith, but only 2 of their 3 children lived to adulthood. Other facts about Shakespeare is that he created the Globe with his theater company, which is a theater in a unique shape to specifically perform Shakespeare plays. It's still around to this day, and they still do shows, and I would love to go there. Shakespeare kind of had 3 types of plays, though he kind of did mix the 2 together. He had comedies, and he had tragedies. Comedies and tragedies are very commonly known, and then he had histories, and histories, you know, they're just plays directly from history. But his comedies and tragedies kind of go hand in hand, with some of them being both or having elements of both. And honestly, one of my things, I've always been fascinated with Shakespeare, which is why I chose this play specifically to do out of my options, is because Shakespeare messes around with gender role a lot. Like, I specifically noted, like, I really noticed it when I first read Romeo and Juliet in 9th grade, because my teacher really just brought it up, how Romeo died the feminine way and Juliet the masculine way. And ever since, I've just loved picking apart media and gender and the whole creation of that, especially as a queer trans kid. It's just very fascinating to see how it does date back and how Shakespeare really messed around with gender. And this book is no exception. It is one of the most gendered Shakespeare plays because it's all about, like, cross-dressing. Shakespeare did have 39 total plays, and some of his most popular are, like I mentioned before, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Midsummer's Night's Dream, one of my favorites, the Scottish play, aka The Tempest. I have my collection of Shakespeare plays and I have some other ones from school. Another one of my favorites is The Merchant of Venice. That's always gonna be a favorite. Anyway, back to the actual Twelfth Night play. Play was written in 1600 or 1601 or 1602. The play's setting is a fictional place called Illyria, and I wanted to also focus on gender roles in the 1600s. Were very traditional. Men typically seen as the heads of the household and were expected to engage in public life, including politics, trade, and warfare, where women, on the other hand, were largely confined to domicilial roles, forcing on managing household and raising children and supporting their husbands, which still shows kind of more of today, and even people have similar beliefs to these, so it's very interesting to see the audience reaction of this show. Well, Shakespeare, he was always for pushing boundaries, and the audience's reaction was amusement as well as bewilderment. I cannot talk today. The first performance was in the Middle Temple of London on February 1602, and there wasn't really any notable like productions of this show besides some of the ones in the Globe, and there was a movie adaptation with Helena Bonham Carter, but you can't really find that one without illegally doing so. Or I guess buying or finding it secondhand. Modern adaptations of this show, I mean, with Shakespeare shows in general, a lot of them have been modernly adapted, such as The Taming of the Shrew is 10 Things I Hate About You, or Lion King is Hamlet. But for the 12th Night, there's actually 3 pretty notable ones, which is She's the Man, Motocrossed, and Just One of the Guys. Now in total, the 12th Night has has 7 Tony Awards from different productions of it, and then the 12th Night is referring to it's the holiday before Epiphany, so it's 12 days after Christmas, which Epiphany is a Christian holiday symbolizing the end of Christmas. And so, yeah. Now, when I break down this play, I'm going to talk about the characters. Let me clear my whiteboard. So, okay, whiteboard clear. So, when I'm breaking down characters and analyzing characters in plays and books and any kind of media, my favorite method is making character webs, to demonstrate the characters' relationships with each other, as well as basic attributes. So first off, we have the main character, I would say, which is Viola, but also known as Cesario for most of the story. So Viola, her name came from the Latin word violet, which has symbolism to flowers, as well as the instrument viola, which is like a violin, just a little bigger. And then her male name, Cesario, is Latin Rome name for Caesar, which means, translates to long-haired or hairy, but also symbolizes strength, leadership, and regality, because, I mean, Caesar. Viola cross-dresses to a man, which is very interesting for the time. It's kind of giving Mulan. It's kind of, but for when this was written, and also, like, I mean, cross-dressing has always been kind of a form of entertainment, but, and a need of necessity, but to see it in a play was very interesting, of this time. When she's cross-dressing, she works as, Orsino's page. She works as Orsino's page, and then she ends up falling in love with him. However, remember, she is dressed as a man, so that's a little messy. Now, a physical description so I'm using a little template for characters from my my theater professor, and I really like it, so we're using it. A physical description I would have of this character, how I pictured her is, or him, I'll get into it in a minute, but she has a twin brother. But I picture her, honestly, with a kind of rugged and like she is described to have very beautiful like features and very like beautiful eyes. So I'm gonna keep that in, and I'm gonna talk about in my vision how I'm gonna include that into if I was to put on the show in a little bit. But I think I'd have her have pretty sharp masculine features but still be very feminine. And same goes for her brother, because they are twins. And it is known eventually when she cross-dresses that she looks exactly like her brother. Now, what is her deepest desire? Honestly, I think it's kind of hard to say, but I think it's gonna be love, both relationship and family-wise, because she loves her brother and she loves Ursino. And what motivates her? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think her heart. Her heart is very where it needs to be. She's extremely nice and kind and just wants to keep going. Like, the answer to this question is in like the first act. What do they fear the most? Probably the situation they got in, losing more people. And then what is one of their flaws or quirks? Probably cross-dressing, and pretending to be someone she's not, because that made it quite messy for everyone else. And then what are their major conflicts, or what have they done to have conflicts with? Well, they caused a woman to fall in love with them as a man, while as a man falling in love with a man. Yeah, it's a little messy. We'll get there when we add the other characters. Next, we have Orsino. And so Orsino is, and Viola are connected because works for him, but also loves him. Where he just obviously sees him as a guy, a bro friend. So it's one-sided right now, but they like each other, or they're mutuals. So Orsino, is in love with Olivia, which I haven't gotten to her yet, but, you can see where this relationship's not working out right now. And he's also, what I noticed, a misogynist. He said some questionable things in these chapters, and I was like, oh, okay, buddy. Like, the way he would talk to Viola, a woman, without knowing it, was just very questionable. Especially, I'm like, I wrote in some of my annotations, like, how is she in love with him? He's a little questionable, but, you know, Viola likes him, so that's okay. A physical description for him: blonde. That's just kind of the vibe I got. Deepest desire to be with Olivia, but that does change. What motivates him? His kingdom? I don't know. What do they fear most? He definitely fears rejection, because that was a whole, like, situation in itself. And what is some of their flaws and quirks? Like I said before, misogyny. He's definitely interesting, but also it's part of the times. And major conflicts, well, he was begging to marry this one girl who didn't want to marry him. Moving on, we have Olivia, who completes the love triangle. So Olivia just lost her brother, which put her in mourning, and she made a promise desperately after losing her brother. She's like, oh, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna, like, go out of mourning for 7 years, because, like, my brother, oh no. And so Orsino really loves Olivia, and he's, like, sending people to go get her. And so he's like, love. And so he's like, cool. And so he sends, you know, his right-hand man, to go and, get her. To go spread the word and try to persuade her to marry him. And Olivia ends up falling in love with Viola. And that's crazy. And Viola's like, oh my god. What? I realize I should be doing this draft as I go through the play. I had this all laid out, and of course I just can't do it. Whatever. Oh, wait, I did do what Orsino's name means. Anyway, Olivia's name is Latin for olive tree, and it's good for femininity and strength. Physical description of her. I just imagine her in this whole scene because she's in mourning a lot. And the way I designed her costume in my head, I imagine her with very long, dark, wavy hair. Not black, but a dark brown. And very, like, I would say brown eyes as well. With, like, a yearn to them. Deepest desire, probably to have her brother back. She wants her brother back. And then what motivates her? That's confusing because obviously her brother put her in the mourning, but then she kind of gets mad about that. So as I explain the story, I'm probably going to touch up on these more. And then what do they fear the most? Probably marrying or Orsino. Yeah, Orsino. Then quirks and flaws. Her quirks are definitely, and flaws are, I would say, her lack of thought when it comes to making decisions. She makes a lot of quick decisions, and it really shows. And major conflicts, obviously, she's in mourning, and she wants to marry someone, but also not the person that wants to marry her. It's all messy. It's all messy. And then, for my assignment, I really had to have 4 characters kind of for this, to really go into, and so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna say, honestly, the next important character besides these 3 is the Fool, also known as Festes, and his name translates to lucky, festive, joyful, and the reason is because this character, the Fool, even though it's a fool, and most Shakespeare shows likes to be described as more wise than the rest of the characters. Deepest desire, it's not really stated. A lot of these characters kind of, like, you can really just argue it's love, but the Fool, completely unknown. What motivates them? It's really unknown. Money, you could say, because the Fool does get paid when he does his services. And then, what do they fear most? Again, the Fool is very mysterious, which causes it hard to read, but also very interesting to analyze. And then quirks and flaws is, I would say, just... I wouldn't say there's necessarily flaws besides kind of being a trickster. So yes. And the Fool works for Olivia. They're, like, related, or they work for each other. And then, yeah. I'm gonna do the summary of the show, and then I'm gonna add these characters as they get brought up. I just have notes for them all, so, yeah. Anyway, Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. I have a few spots that I really wanted to note on. And so the show, I would say Act 1 is mostly an intro. The first few scenes going over how Viola is in a... Oh, how Orsino really wants Olivia is scene 1. Scene 2 talks about the crash and how Viola thinks her twin brother is dead. And so she's all like, this is where she goes, and this is where the cross-dressing happens. And she's like, oh my gosh, my brother's dead. I need to go, and I need to be successful, and I need to, like, do that as a man, because that's just how she's gonna do that. Scene 3, I don't really have notes for that. I don't know what that's... I mean, I have notes in the book, but on my first page. And then scene 4 and 5, I kind of highlighted. And so, scene 4 is, oh, I know what scene 3 is. Scene 3 shows the friendship that these two have, Viola and Orsino, after 1 or 3 days of knowing each other. And scene 4 is when he sends, her, oh wait, no, that's scene 4. Whatever, scene 4. And then scene 5, Olivia is, in love with Viola, because at first, like, I think I'm gonna go to this page because it is kind of important. Yes, anyway, scene 5 is long. And so in the meantime, in Act 1, there's like some crazy stuff with Olivia's dad. No. There's some weird stuff with Olivia's uncle, Sir Toby. And so I'm gonna write him here, Sir Toby. And I'm gonna say their family, I'm gonna do a squiggly line. So they're related. And Sir Toby has, he's a very toxic man, and he's drunken, and he's also an instigator, which I'll get into more later. And he has, this friend, Sir Andrew, and Andrew's very foolish, and honestly a very sad character. And Sir Toby wants Andrew to be in love with Olivia, so they want them to get together, and he's like kind of setting them up, and Olivia wants nothing to do with it, but like Toby's like, no, Andrew, stay, like you got her, like trust me. So it's very interesting. So we have Andrew, they're besties, and then Andrew loves Olivia technically. And then, yeah. And she does not. So I'm gonna do broken heart. Yeah. And then, so Act 1 ends. And then Act 2, we kind of find out about Sebastian, who, I think it depends on how you, it's pretty obvious. But it's not like blatantly said, but Sebastian is Olivia's dead twin brother, and he's alive, and he's with this friend guy named Antonio. And so I'm gonna, did I say Olivia? I meant whatever. So I'm gonna put Sebastian, Seb, and family, their brothers and sister, and then I'm gonna put a connecting with Antonio, and we'll add on to this relationship in a little bit. Friendship, I guess. Anyway, then in scene 2, that's when Viola finds out that Olivia wants her because she deliberately gives a ring to her. And this ring I'm gonna bring up later about symbolism with jewelry in this show. But yeah, and then scene 1 I did have highlighted as well because the brother being alive is kind of like, oh my gosh. Scene 3 of Act 2 is yes, characters I haven't brought up yet because they haven't been important until now. But scene 3 is kind of like this like goofy, like funny subplot that's been going on. And so this is where I'm gonna bring in, where am I gonna put Monvolio. Now Monvolio, he likes Olivia, but he's also her steward. And so everyone's kind of making fun of Andrew and Toby, as well as Olivia's servant Maria, are kind of making fun of Benvolio, and he's like, he's such a goody two-shoes, oh, he's kind of dumb, boo boo boo. And so they're making fun of him, and so they're like, we gotta trick him, I'm so done with this guy. And so what they do is, Maria is a little trickster, and she's like, guys, you're being dumb, because they were going to challenge him to a duel, and then she's like, no, you're being dumb, I could forge Olivia's signature, write a love letter and make him do it, and read it. So that's the plan, and they're like, oh, that's brilliant. And so I thought that was very interesting, because Maria is kind of shown as more masculine. She's very appreciated from the men of the group. She's seen as smarter than them and very witty, and it's very powerful, and I thought that was very interesting. Maria's character is very interesting to me. Anyway, after that scene, the comic relief, unintentionally and not Viola confesses her feelings in secret to Orsino, because obviously she's a guy, and back then that wasn't like the norm, and so she kind of talks about her feelings in a secondhand point of view, pointing out how she feels about him, but how she can't have that. And honestly, it's a really unfortunate scene. It's kind of heartbreaking, and I also had this scene highlighted because I think it's just like insanely like important to the story, and also to kind of show the, I mean, at the time, tragedy of the show, but it is a comedy. It's 100% a comedy. This show is so goofy. And then in scene 5 of Act 2, they actually do the trick to Malvolio, and so he comes in, he's like, oh my gosh, Olivia loves me back, and she doesn't, and they're all watching him read this letter and just getting his ego, and they're like, oh, egotistical, and I'm like, okay guys, like, you're one to talk, and yeah, so these little guys are kind of like in their little friendship against Malvolio. They don't like him very much. And yeah, they're technically connected, obviously, because the trick. And so since the show has 5 acts, I decided to put a if I was to put the show on, I'm gonna say the intermission would be in between Act 2 and Act 3, but you could argue it would be after Act 3, but I don't know yet. Like, I would have to like work out with my actors and like have it all laid out to kind of decide how impactful scene 5 of Act 2 is versus scene 4 of Act 3. And also time running. But to end off with that like kind of subplot, but also to have just found out like, oh my gosh, like this stuff's getting good. And so then scene 3 opens with Olivia confessing to Viola, and Viola rejects, obviously, and it is kind of really sad because she's like, no, you can't have me, like, no, you don't know, but like, it's very like backhanded, and obviously the audience knows, and so it's very interesting to try to look at it as from a different perspective without knowing why she's acting like that. But it's just another scene I had highlighted because it's very interesting. Anyway, scene 2. Anyway, so Andrew is realizing that Olivia likes Viola, and so he's like going to like Toby and is like, dude, like she likes him more than me, like I'm done. And Toby's like, no. And this is where his what did I say, manipulating his instigatorness comes in, and he's like, no, you gotta like she's just trying to make you jealous, like she wants you to challenge him to a duel so like you can like, you know, level it up. So he's like plotting to challenge Cesario to a duel, which is very interesting. And then scene 3, it's just kind of bonding between Sebastian and his little friend Antonio, except I'm gonna throw this in, and this is my personal opinion, and you can take this however you do, but I do believe Antonio is in love with Sebastian, and I would say there's more proof later. Like, he gets a little sad during it too, like when he's not, you know, reciprocated. But anyway, Antonio's very much like, no, my friend, like, pretty much like, I love you. I'm pretty sure he does say I love you in it. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not gonna find that scene right now, but I'm pretty sure he does say I love you. So that would be interesting, but I think Antonio definitely does like Sebastian, which is very hard and interesting in this time, and also with everyone else kind of pushing gender roles, and the whole idea of Olivia falling in love with Viola as a man, like, I wonder if, I'm not gonna get there yet, but if this play ended differently, how queer this story could have became, more queer than it already is. And so then scene 4 of Act 3 is yeah, so Act 3, Scene 4 is such a long scene, and it is so powerful, and that's, you know, I might want to put the intermission there, I don't know yet, but I have a bunch of notes, and so Malvolio confronts Olivia with this new idea that he's like, oh, Olivia likes me, oh my gosh, and she's like, dude, what? No. And then and then we get Viola, and what's his name? Andrew. They fight. And then they're fighting. Oh, and by the way, these two, they kind of went to, I'm gonna put an insert of what I'm thinking of. But anyway, so yeah, these two are there, and so they kind of like separated, and like Antonio gave him some money. That's important. I totally forgot how important that was. But anyway, Antonio sees the duel between who he thinks is Sebastian, but it's actually Viola dressed up as a man, because they look, again, very similar. And it's like, no, stop this. And so he stops it, and then because he stops it, he gets arrested. And so he's like, give me my money back, like, so I can, like, you know, be free. And like, obviously it's not Sebastian, so he doesn't have the money. And so Viola's like, what money? I don't have, like, what? She's just confused. And so Antonio feels like betrayed, and honestly, like, it's really upsetting to think, like, imagine thinking like the love of your life like just betrays you. Whatever, because they really, like, you have to read it yourself or watch it yourself to see them. So anyway, that's the end of Act 3, and then we move on to Act 4, where Act 4, guess who's back to fight? Andrew, but he's now fighting with the actual Sebastian, because he's now fighting with Sebastian because he thinks it's Viola. And so Sebastian, unlike Viola, is game to fight. Viola was kind of hesitant. I was like, what? Very feminine attributes, feminine. And then Sebastian's like, oh, no, I'm gonna fight this guy. And so he's like, cool, let's go fight this. And then, like, Olivia's there, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're so cool, like, date me. And she's like, cool. And she now, is still, like, in love with Viola, but that's because she thinks Sebastian is Viola. And Sebastian feels the same way. He's like, oh, this girl likes me, cool. Low-key, Sebastian's not my favorite character. He could have had his perfect happily ever after with Antonia, but no. He's like, this cute girl wants me because, like, whatever my sister did to, like, frizz her up, whatever her charisma was, whatever. And so anyway, scene 2, scene 2 of Act 4, I forgot to mention again, man. Previously, when Malvolio went to confess or talk to Olivia, she didn't know what she was talking about because the note. They put him in prison because they thought he was crazy. So anyway, so a fool goes and, like, confronts him. Or no, actually, Maria goes and tells the fool to dress up as a hermit and confront him, and then he goes back as the fool and confronts him and, like, sings his song, because the fool does a lot of singing. Anyway, scene 3 of that is when Olivia asks Sebastian to marry her, and Sebastian says yes, because again, he gave up whatever with Antonio for this girl. And this fact is very interesting because, again, I kind of like to pay attention to masculine and feminine things, and for Olivia to be the one to ask Sebastian to marry her is very untraditional, especially in the time period and how quick she was, and she very much stood up for herself, which is very, again, not traditionally feminine, especially after mourning, so it's just very interesting to think about. And so then, end of Act 4, one more act and one more scene. Act 5, pretty much Act 5 just reveals everything, because Orsino finally goes to see Olivia himself to, like, confront, and then he's like, oh my gosh, what? And then Olivia's like, oh, my husband, talking about Sebastian, and he's like, what? And then Viola shows up, and then Sebastian and Viola like exchange details about each other, and they're like, oh my gosh, brother, sister. And then they clear it up, and then Viola confesses to Orsino, but she won't let like her brother or Orsino embrace her until she's dressed into her feminine clothes again and is back to Viola. And they also continue to call her Cesario. It's very interesting. This whole scene is it's very interesting. But again, Antonio's kind of there, and he's like, my boyfriend, I mean my friend. And then Orsino and Viola end up happy, and then Olivia and Sebastian end up happy. And then like the rest of them, like, it doesn't really nothing really happens. They just kind of, I don't know. I mean, Benvolio's there, but it's not really important. Yeah, that's the 12th night. And some other key things in this are symbols, themes, and then like unique story elements that I would like to talk about before I talk about my vision for the show, if I was to put it on myself. So obviously gender, for themes, gender is a huge theme. Gender as well as sexuality even, because obviously Viola and Olivia can't be together because Viola is straight and not actually a guy. And so my thing is the fact that Olivia liked Viola at all is very interesting. Obviously, like, she only saw her as a man, but it's just very interesting. And same with Orsino even liking her, because he also, for the majority of their relationship, well, in the play, saw her as a man, and then is like, oh yeah, I'm in love with her. Like, I don't know. Again, we have Antonio kind of crushing on Sebastian. We have Benvolio, just the straightest guy ever. I don't know. I kind of, what I was talking about earlier is I really wish, like, if the show, like, if it was, like, how it would have played out if Sebastian wasn't a part of this, like, if Viola had to eventually come clean and be like, hey, yeah, this is, like, true. How Olivia would react. I mean, how Orsino would like, it's just, I really want to see different endings to this play. Another thing is grief. Obviously, Olivia is grieving her brother, and made her take a lot of those quick decisions. And then another thing is love. Obviously, we have love triangle, choop, 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 which ends up turning into perfect, well, they're kind of far away, but perfect pairing. We have madness. The show is very confusing, very crazy, very tons of stuff, cross-dressing, not knowing things. The whole Benvolio and Maria and the other two side plot, like, why was that I don't know. It's whatever. And then another thing is identity, back with Viola having this, like, her identity as Viola is not the same as Cesario, but it's also, like, the same in a way. And, like, she's like, no, you can't embrace me unless I'm in my feminine or my female clothes and whatever. It's just very interesting. And then also, I would see a theme as miscommunication. This whole show, if, like, because Viola at first was like, oh, cross-dressing is great, this is handy, and then it got messy because, oh, she likes a guy that thinks she's a guy, and then this girl likes her who thinks she's a guy, and so, if Viola just communicated, it would have been very different. The whole, I mean, this was on purpose miscommunication, the whole Benvolio plot, but it's just, again, communication's kind of key. Symbols, I would say, jewelry in the show, like, Olivia gave both, Sebastian and Viola jewelry or pearls, whatever, to, like, symbolize her love. And then another symbol is music. Music is commonly, like, in the show and also, like, around whenever, like after any sort of like loving event, and also the Fool commonly brings up love in his music. And then also the lovers are two pairs, Olivia and that's not right. Olivia and Sebastian and Viola and Orsino. Both of those characters, before like even realizing their like lines went together, they completed each other, they finished each other, they flowed together. They were just made to be. Shakespeare did that very intentionally, and it's very interesting to show that they did that even before the truth was out on each other's genders and identity. Unique story elements, love triangle, cross-dressing. Yeah. Now we get to the fun part. That was the basic analysis, and now we're going into my vision. So, when it comes to Shakespeare plays, putting on Shakespeare plays are very interesting because Shakespeare, for one, is, since it's so old, there's no copyright, so you can do plays for free, you can alter the text as much as you want, you can alter things about the show as much as you want, and that's why there's so many different variations of Shakespeare shows, and also why, like, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about following the script 100%, and again, you can completely alter the script, make it whatever you want. But another thing about Shakespeare plays is they're so unique because the time frame is very outdated, which isn't a problem. Like, obviously, they still put very accurate shows on at the Globe, but for the most people, it's gonna be super hard to make all of those time accurate 1600s outfits. And so my solution for the 12th night specifically is I would set it in the 1920s, because that era is all about gender, identity, sexuality, and I feel like so is this show, and I have a perfect vision for it. I would put this, I would, like most Shakespeare shows, not including the Globe, I would perform the show on a proscenium, stage, which is the basic stage, like the traditional stages you see like Broadway shows on most of the time. It's the very traditional one. When you picture a stage, that's what you think of. I would perform it on that, and I would change one thing. Well, I was contemplating on changing the gender of the Fool, which you can do, but I actually I came up with a solution instead. I'm going to change the Fool. Instead of like whole royal family castle stuff, whatever, I would make this take place in some sort of brothel, club, flapper club type place. Very old money, very a little risky at times. And I would make the Fool a pansy performer. A pansy performer is kind of what they used to call drag queens back in the day. And I think it would be very interesting if the Fool played a character that was cross-dressing, especially dealing with Viola. And it's kind of like a mockery, kind of like it's its own thing. It's like, oh, you little weirdo, but I'm still gonna pay you because like you're funny, haha. And also that's a way to make it very bright, very traditional flapper attire, because I was like, how could I make the Fool wear like a flapper dress, like a bright, colorful flapper dress? Because I instantly, for Olivia, I have a costume idea, and so I have a visual that I'll show my ideas on the screen, but that's my ideas for Olivia, and I just instantly thought of that, and I'm like, yes, that is what she's wearing. For at least the beginning of the show, when she's in her mourning. As for Viola, in her cross-dressing, I'd give her a little newsboy, paperboy hat to cover her hair, as well as a vest with pleated pants. I'll show a photo of what I imagine her to, or my vision for Viola is very much so that, where a lot of these other men are more formal and might wear a little more gold. And for Maria, I kind of see her as also a very flappery girl, Voiceover Alex here. I was editing and I realized I forgot so much for my costume idea. Anyway, for Olivia, I have her morning outfit as well as her last few acts when she is like, Sebastian, marry me, but she doesn't know it's Sebastian yet. And I showed you that previous black dress for her morning, but yeah, I think she'd still have some colors. As for Viola, I already talked about her Cesario costume, but I would put her in her feminine Viola costume is a orange flapper dress, as orange symbolizes not being seen as your gender identity. I would also give her orange accents in the vest outfit, and Sebastian's costume would be very similar. However, between the same thing that I would keep for both costumes is I would give Viola's makeup the classic 1920s eye looks with the big dramatic lashes, since her face is seen very feminine even as Cesario, and I would like that to be seen like that. For the Fool, like I mentioned before, I would make them a pansy performer, and I'd put them in a purple flapper dress. On the right, there is a photo of an actual pansy performer. So I would want the costume to look similar to that, but with purple in it, as purple is a very queer color and also has a huge part of gender identity, and I feel like, especially since the Fool is very wise, I would like the Fool to have that color scheme. Okay, editing Alex out. Sorry for the inconvenience. The 12th Night is a very messy show, and it's very fun, very entertaining. It leaves so much creativity, so much up for interpretations. You just have to be ready for that, have fun with it, and be creative. But honestly, if someone wants to help me produce a 1920s 12th Night, let me know, because I have so many more ideas. I'm just trying to keep it short for this. Anyway, Alex out. Peace.